Welcome into another episode of Double Overtime, presented by VC Ultimate. We are officially halfway through the Western Ultimate League season, and POL season is pretty much getting underway, with over half the teams having played their opening game. I am Jenna Weiner. He is Sascha Vogel. Sascha, we gotta talk some college drama first, because your region and my region, AC in the Southwest, are rather involved. And I know you didn't want to talk about it because it's a whole thing that's been back and forth. And if you're a subscriber, if you haven't seen the Discord, good luck, because there is a load of backload conversation. How can we quickly summarize this, Sascha? A bid really changed hands unexpectedly, going from, in the D1 men's division, going from the Southwest to the Atlantic coast, and people are unhappy. Sascha, thoughts as part of the AC and as coach of one of the teams that may well benefit from this change?
I mean, I'm not mad.
Fair.
I
should be more upset. I'm literally a Cal grad. I played Cal men's B Ultimate back in the day. Like, I should be upset, but it's a whole thing. Anyway,
it is a whole
continue.
thing, and like I get it. It sucks. I understand where the frustration is coming from. Like, I truly do. I don't know. It's weird because like there's something that this hasn't ever really happened before, and so there was no like way to get around it, if that makes sense. And
yeah,
so like it's within the rules of what we have, and so like I don't know, like it sucks, but like that's part of it. And I'm expecting that next year there will be some sort of rule change or clarification made so that this doesn't happen again. But I mean, there's nothing you really can do this year for it.
Yeah, it's tough because this is the first time that USC has done rankings for 3 years, since 2019. So it's a bit of a process. People are getting used to it. There are things around like our college kids, right? Our teams has the knowledge. I saw some. I'm regurgitating things that have been said already by different people in like the Discord. But like, is there part of an issue of like some of the knowledge base from like seniors and super seniors that was lost from the last time rankings happened in 2019? I think also just generally, and this is not a new thing, any sort of better communication from USA Ultimate, any sort of like time for people to like react and respond and such, instead of feeling like sort of 0 to 60 in terms of we don't have any final rankings yet, or we don't have end of season rankings yet. All of a sudden now we have final rankings and now there are questions. So it's tough when you have this sort of situation, as you said. Also, interestingly, it happened in the D1 women's division as well, a bid going from the Northwest to the South Central, but hasn't generated the same level of consternation, upsetness, frustration vocally, as in D1 men's. And I feel like there's a few different reasons for that, probably in part the men's teams involved being, certainly on the Cal side, being a bit more prominent than no offense to Western or UT Dallas, than either of those teams in the women's division, certainly social media wise. Anyway, it's a whole thing. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out. I think there was a thought, I certainly thought there was a chance USAU might change things around. I think there's still a chance, but conferences start like
this weekend
in 3 days. Like,
I don't think
it's going to change at this point, but it is what it is. And yeah, it sucks for the Southwest men's, Cal men's, and yeah. It's a whole thing.
It's gonna make regionals for both of the regions way more
so much
interesting.
Better. So much better.
Because like there are 4 nationals level teams in the Southwest, obviously. And now there's only 3 bids. So that makes it super interesting. There in the AC, there's UNC, and then there's a 5 or 6 other teams that could, you know, duke it out for this bid, including Duke.
Yeah, true.
So like it's gonna make regionals a lot more interesting in my opinion. So that part's exciting at least.
Yeah. I think the same could be said for women's as well. I think South Central with 3 bids feels generous, maybe. And it'll be a bit of a toss-up, it feels like, between probably UVic and Western for the final bid of the Northwest. But still, fundamentally, if we're going to be honest here, this is not like it's having one fewer Southwest team or one more AC team or the same things in the women's division is going to make a huge impact on nationals. If we're going to be honest, those teams are probably going to maybe, and that's a generous, maybe make the bracket, but probably finish 4th or 5th in their pools on day 1 and be out, and that, as it goes. So again, and maybe it's a little too glib, and it's, again, tough for the folks who will inevitably not make it, but this is how it unfortunately goes sometimes. And again, you wish for better communication, and I think that's about it. Anything else on this topic?
Nope, we've spent way too much time on college stuff. Let's keep it.
All right, fine. This is okay. One quick thing before we dive in to WLPL things. I think we're gonna start with the Premier Ultimate League, and a quick caveat about talking about games and such going forward for us, because again, we've already spent nearly like 7 minutes or something like that on college and intro stuff. Starting this week, starting with this podcast, for the next like 7 weeks, Sascha and I have at least 5 games to recap and tell y'all about from the past weekend, and cover some of the highlights and major stories and some of the stat leaders for what stats we have depending on what day we record, because we're recording Tuesday. Western Ultimate League doesn't release their stats till Thursday. POL stats are come as you get them sometimes, maybe. Anyway, apologies in advance if we don't talk about your team or your play or your friend or etc. To the extent that you would like. Fundamentally, this is not a full-time job for Sascha or I. Fundamentally, there will be times like this past weekend where I was commentating for the Falcons home game. I hope you tuned in, even though the Falcons lost. Where literally all of the games were stacked up on each other. And so I didn't get to watch basically anything on Saturday because I was busy prepping for and then commentating the Falcons game. And then it's only been a few days since, and I and Sascha, in a somewhat similar position, have been trying to catch up on what we missed over the weekend. So apologies in advance. We're going to try and cover what we can. But if we don't talk about you, your team, your teammate, your friend, your community, etc., it's not because we don't care. It's not because we think that all of the storylines should be ignored in all these different ways. Is that we don't have the capacity for it. And we are doing what we can. So please be gentle. With that, let's talk about some POL stuff, shall we? Let's talk, Sascha, about the game that I think was the only 2 games in the POL. The game that was circled on people's calendars. It was New York Gridlock at Philadelphia Surge, Philly's first game. It was a home game, and it was like a showcase game type of thing as part of like Amherst Invite, and it was a whole big deal. Ultimate under the lights. You love to see it. And sure enough, Philly wins their debut. They win their first ever official game. Don't ignore the UNC result. That was just another random showcase, not in the POL, so it doesn't really count. And they beat Gridlock, which I think on paper beforehand would have been a surprise if we didn't know who was playing on the weekend, but we also knew that Gridlock was missing a lot of players. So, Sasha, your initial takeaways from this game from Philly, 6-game season, they got an early win, and that's maybe big in the highly competitive East Division that we're anticipating.
Well, first of all, I'm just gonna own up to something real quick. I picked New York to win this game.
You did. It's true.
I did, and at the time, I'm not making like excuses, but also I am making a tiny excuse that I did not realize that this was a Philly home game, and I should have realized that at the time, because I forget how strong this Philly community is and how much they care about their women's sports and their sports in general. And I was told that there was like at least like around 800 people at this game.
Wow.
So like
those are big numbers for Ultimate.
It's huge. And so that like had I realized it was Philly, like a Philly home game, I probably would have chosen Philly just due to the crowd and home field advantage because of that stuff like that. But I did not choose them, so yeah, that's on me. That sucks for me. But like it was a great game to watch. It was a lot of fun. The very first 8 points of the game, 4-4, 0 turnovers. That's like I feel like that's the level that every single team should be at. To 0 turnovers in the first just at least amount of turnovers possible, obviously. But I feel like with both of these leagues, we see a like heavy turnover games. And I think that when I was watching this and I saw the announcers were like, yeah, that's no turnovers for either team, I was like, this is legit. These are like, if you're going on these games with very low turnovers, that's championship like level winning at the beginning of the season too.
Yeah, I'm gonna maybe give you a quick mulligan. By my count, it was the first 4 points of the game that
First
were
4 points?
clean. All holds. I mean, it wasn't 4-4. It was 4 points total.
There we go.
It's, I think from what I was going back and skimming through this game, it looked like New York got the game's first break to go up 3-2, which like notable that in a game that Philly led from the end of the first quarter through the end of the game, like it was New York that got the first break of the game, and then it was basically all Philly from there. New York had their moments. I mean, freaking Nina Finley had a Callahan, albeit for a hold, but had a Callahan later in the game in the second half for Gridlock. But yeah, it was very impressive for Philly all around. And yeah, I definitely you could hear and almost feel that home field advantage even coming through the stream.
Yeah, apologies. I'm now looking at our notes, and a 5-3 Philly lead after one, that doesn't make sense if there was no turnovers.
It does. But, it doesn't square with 4-4.
Yep. Anyways, it like both teams look great, and I think New York, when they get their few people that they didn't have for the weekend, they're gonna look like even better.
Yeah, it's obviously going to help to have Ina Cartagena and Elizabeth Mosquera back. Those two both down playing at TEP this weekend, so that will 100% help. So as it goes, it's an away game against a tough opponent, so it's not the worst loss in the world. I think if you're in New York, you'd like to win it, of course, but you're not gonna, not the end of the world. I don't think, at least. It's too early for that.
It is way too early for that, because who does New York play next? They play Portland at home in 3 weeks.
And that's a game that I would expect New York to win, assuming they have all of their players back. Portland looked pretty good week 1 against Austin, but I would expect, New York to win that. And if they win that, then they're 1-1 in the division. And then it comes down to what I think would expect, especially from our preseason picks, to be the game for the division. DC and New York later in the season. And it may come down to that for New York, whether they're able to go 2-1 or 1-2 in the division at that point.
Yeah, like you said, I don't think there's no need to panic about this loss, and that they're just going to get stronger as the season goes.
Yeah, and we saw a lot of the names that I think we would have expected coming in, making an impact. For Philly, Andrea DeSabato with 3 assists, Liz Hart 3 goals, Lindsay McKenna 2 goals, 2 assists. These were through most of the game by my count. And again, plenty of big names from AMP, from Philly Flight, Emma Soils. Incredible layout block. We'll come back to that one. And at the end of the day, Philly goes 6 for 20 on break chances, while New York goes 2 for 11. Philly generating a lot more break opportunities and converting on them at a slightly better clip than New York. And that makes a difference, and that's how they're able to build and then hold on to their lead throughout the game.
Right. Yeah, overall, great game to watch. If you haven't watched it, go onto the PUL YouTube and check it out. It was a lot of fun. You can definitely feel the energy coming through the screen.
Should we move on to the other PUL game that maybe I wouldn't say had less energy, but certainly was less close than the New York and Philly game?
Yeah, Indy Red traveled to DC and played Shadow. Shadow came out and decided to say, hey, we want to win everything. And
we were the number 1 seeds last year for a reason, y'all.
Yeah.
Don't forget.
And they won 29-11. They almost hit the 30 mark. They were very close to hitting the 30 mark.
They would have had they potentially not taken a timeout with 30 seconds to go and then turned it over after the timeout. That's a whole thing that we can go into if we want to. But yeah, I mean, is it surprising? I don't know if I'm surprised. We knew that DC had a loaded roster. We knew that they were bringing back a lot of the same players from that top seeded team last year. And we knew that DC's defense was good. It was very good last year. In 4 of their 6 regular season games, they held their opponents to under 10 points. They didn't quite do that to Indy this time, but like nearly. And I think it's tough too for Indy early in the season, on the road against DC, not the draw that you would want for your opening game. And they were relatively close early on. It was pretty balanced in the early going for the most part. It was 6-4 after 1. And then it was 9-7 at one point with under 3 minutes to go in the second quarter. But then from 9-7, it was 20-4 in DC's favor from there on out. Second half was just all DC. 16-4. 16-4 second half margin for Shadow, which is a ridiculous margin, but similar to what we saw from them at times last season.
Yeah, and like I started watching this game before I turned on Surge and Gridlock, and it was pretty close. Like I was seeing, Red coming out and playing their offense and looking pretty good, and they, were tied after 8 points, 4-4, and then the very first break of the game didn't come until the very end of the first quarter. And that was Shadow going up 6-4. And then from there, they just rode that momentum all the way to the end and did not let off the gas.
Yeah, it helps when you rattle off 4 straight points heading into the halftime break, and then can come out and have your defense continue to operate at a really high level, which is exactly what happened for Shadow. I mean, it wasn't a lost cause for Indy by any means. Again, you have a strong first half performance, at least most of the first half performance to lean on. Eliza Hutchings had a couple of goals in the first half for Indy. So, and again, as we have been saying for Midwest teams like Columbus last week, it's going to come down to the divisional games, probably for the Midwest. It's going to be key for Indy to focus on winning those Midwest games, because if you win your division games, you're going to give yourself a chance. It's such a short season. The division games are literally half the season. You win those, you put yourself in a position, and you just hope the out of division games work in your favor. And I think that's where Red have to be. It's like, hey, tough loss, shake it off, move on to the next one. Ideally, of course. Easier said than done.
Yeah, first game of the season, so it's not terrible, and it's also a non-conference game for both of them. So
yeah,
it's not honestly not that big a deal.
Yeah.
Do we want to talk about the timeout that Shadow took at the end of the game?
We can briefly. I don't hate it. I think one thing that I have definitely in similar discussions, people are like, oh, it's not like spirited or not like the right thing to do to take a timeout to try to like continue to like put on pressure and score more goals. But also, I think I could generally agree with, like, if you want to show respect to your opponents, you're going to just continue to play hard, and you're not going to let up and be like, oh, we're like going to take it easy on you because we feel bad. Like, if you respect your opponents as competitors, you're like, we're just going to treat it as if it's competitive the entire way. So I don't hate it. And also goal differential and margin of victory might come into play somehow, one way or another. We'll get to that in a sec.
Yeah. The way
that's my take, at least.
Yeah. The way I look at it, it's like, it was like, in the moment, it's kind of weird. I'm like, you're up by 18. Like, what are we doing here? But like going and thinking about it a little more, I'm like, maybe they were just practicing, quote, for, situations where they have to do that later in the season. And if they're in a close game, or giving like real game time reps for that situation for the lower end of the roster as well.
Yeah. There's a bunch of situations, right, that could bear it out, in addition to the just like, you're just going to keep playing as if you've been playing, and it doesn't matter if you're up by 1 or if you're up by 18. Ideally, right? So, yeah, it's definitely something worth thinking about. We're going to talk about another situation in one of the Western Ultimate League games, I think sort of has some similar vibes. So we'll get there. One thing I did want to touch on before we talk about the championship weekend qualification process, because we're going to talk about it, even if briefly, even if we don't have all the information right now. There was a bit of conversation on Twitter, and I know this has been a point of conversation throughout, about like production quality and folks comparing different game production quality to like what Ultiworld does in particular. People like, hey, like the quality for the DC game wasn't good and it was too zoomed in and this, that, and the other. Or like the Austin game where like there's a pole in the middle of this, which, yeah, that feels a little silly. And at the Falcons game this week, I'll give folks a little behind the scenes. I worked with a second different production company in 2 Falcons home games, and I'm going to work with a third for the third Falcons home game, which is not inherently a problem. It just means that people are going to do things differently, and especially like the folks I worked with for the Falcons game had never done an Ultimate game before, at least not at the level of the Western Ultimate League. And so there's going to be a learning curve. And I think while we all want to have the best representation possible for the incredible athletes in the PUL and the WL, fundamentally also we have to recognize that teams are often trying to organize production on their own. Ultiworld has set a high standard for other folks, but Ultiworld has also been honing their craft for the last decade plus. And so just want folks to be, not to say that you shouldn't be critical or offer critiques, but be thoughtful when you do so, that ideally we're all just trying to help grow and improve the sport, and there's going to be bumps along the way, and it is not going to always be perfect. And I'm appreciating that so far I have been able to watch all but one game live or, on YouTube right away. And the one game I wasn't able to was because the cable snapped for the Onyx Alpenglow game. So I just want to offer people some thoughtfulness. Again, want people to critique in constructive ways, but it's not always going to be perfect, and that is okay. Sascha, any other thoughts on that before we move on?
I expect perfection from everybody, so
that is quite the high bar you have there, bud. Cool. Should we talk rumors? Rumor mill?
Yes, the rumor mill.
The rumor mill. Sascha, what is the rumor mill?
The rumors are of how we're deciding the last team for championship weekend. We all know that the division winner will go to championship weekend. But last year in the PUL, they used the algorithm to determine who the best second place team was in the division in the league
across all the divisions.
Yes.
Yeah. So you pull I guess all three best second place. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Exactly that. This year I was perusing Reddit, as one does at times.
As one does.
And I saw that someone had said that they're not using the algorithm this year, and that there will be a committee that will be choosing who the last team will be, similar to like a playoff committee in college football.
I'm intrigued by that possibility. I've heard rumors that maybe that might look like every team having a representative plus some. So we'll see. If they're looking for non-league people, Sascha and I could be available, so let us know. It'll be interesting. I kind of like the idea of having committee structure, because then you can deal with funky situations where Portland goes 5-1 last year and then gets left out because they end up the third place team in the East Division. I don't think that's going to be a problem, but I could see it happening potentially.
I like it. I like the committee aspect. I know some people probably don't, but I also just don't like the algorithm personally.
Yeah.
There's issues with it, as obviously we can see in college. There's issues with this algorithm. But yeah, I like it. I think it'd be cool. And especially if it's one person from each division or each team, I guess. You could do you can vote for whatever team you want except for your team. Sort of thing.
It'll be interesting to see, that's for sure. Cool. I think that's it for now on POL things. We're going to take a quick break. When we get back, talking Western Ultimate League games, 3 over the week, including Colorado Alpenglow getting their inaugural win in their home opener. Don't go away. We will be right back. Our friends at VC Ultimate are proud to sponsor Double Overtime. VC proudly puts community over profit, focusing their support on initiatives that help promote inclusivity. As the first ever sponsor to back professional women's and non-binary Ultimate, VC puts its money where its mouth is when it comes to equitable action. VC also approaches product innovation intentionally to make more players feel like the Ultimate space is their own. Did you know that all VC core products are now 100% gender-free? If your team is in the market for uniforms or custom team gear, check out VCUltimate.com. Not only are they working to change the landscape of sport, VC's performance gear is the best on the field. Thanks to our sponsors of Double Overtime, VC Ultimate. And welcome back to Double Overtime presented by VC Ultimate. We are talking Western Ultimate League action, 3 games as the Western Ultimate League wrapped up week 5, meaning it's officially halfway through the regular season. Somehow I don't know how that happened. one game involving one of your teams, your team, really. One game involving my team. I was there. And one game involving neither of our teams. And gonna be honest, was the least interesting of the three. So we're gonna touch on that, but yeah, we'll get there. There's some interesting things to talk about related to the middle game, but we're gonna start with the only game in the Northwest Conference. Utah Wild traveling to Colorado Alpenglow. Alpenglow home opener, inaugural home game, and they win. Even though Utah had the initial advantages, and then it was like all Colorado by the time it got to the second half. Sascha, would you like to recap this game that unfortunately your Utah Wild lost?
Yeah. End of the first quarter, it was 8-4 Utah, and I thought, yeah, it's a long game, but like Utah's in control right now. They're in control. They're going to keep control. They're going to win this game because being up 4 after one quarter is it's pretty good.
Pretty good.
But Colorado had other plans apparently.
Supposedly.
And they said no. And they brought it back close to just a 1-goal deficit at half. But then the second half was just all Colorado. Like they 10-6 in the second half. Yeah. They made up that 4-goal deficit from the first quarter and then just kept going. Like they looked great. They haven't looked as cohesive of a unit this season until this game.
Which makes sense for the home opener, if
Yeah.
we're going to be honest. And I also think that, well, yes, Utah and Colorado so far, well, Utah has only played Colorado, and Colorado has only played the other Northwest teams. I think we continue to see the parity in the league and how teams are, for the most part, able to play close and make comebacks and put runs on each other. And notably, so far with these results, we are one Utah Wild win against the San Francisco Falcons in Week 7 from being able to complete a circle of, let's call it circle of success, where every team...
Nope. We got to call it what it is, Jenna.
I'm trying to be kind.
No.
Okay, quick background. But this is a quick tangent so that we can prep people ahead of Week 7 when this inevitably happens, when my team loses to Sasha's team. In Pac-12 college football, it is notorious for all of the teams beating up on each other. And by the end of the season, there's a circle of suck where you can basically make a connection from one team all the way around the entire conference, in the Pac-12 conference in this instance, for one team beating another, all the way around all 12 teams. And we are one Utah win over San Francisco in Week 7 from a Western Ultimate League circle of suck, aka circle of success, where every team will be able to claim a win and a loss to at least one other team in the league in a way that it connects in a circle. So far it is possible now, given Colorado's win. So I have it here, actually, so I'm just going to read it out for folks. A potential circle could be Arizona has beaten Seattle. Seattle has beaten San Diego. San Diego's beaten Oregon. Oregon has beaten Colorado. Colorado has now beaten Utah. All it would take is Utah beating San Francisco, or LA for that matter, who both have beaten each other, who have beaten Arizona. Arizona has beaten Seattle, etc., etc., etc. So anyway, I'm excited for that possibility now that Colorado has won and opened up more possibilities for the circle of success. But yeah,
circle of suck.
Good. Good on Colorado. Rory Veldman. Oh my goodness. Very impressive for Utah. Paige Kircher, also unsurprisingly impressive. And I think I wouldn't be shocked if both of these teams were able to pick up wins come that Week 7 wild weekend, when it's San Francisco and LA traveling to Utah to play Utah and Colorado. I would not be surprised after this weekend if it ended up going in the Northwest team's favor that weekend. What are your thoughts, Sasha? Again, we're looking ahead a couple weeks, but looking ahead to Wild Weekend.
Yeah, it shows Colorado can play. We had our doubts, but we know that they can play. I think that, I don't know, Wild Weekend's gonna, I don't think we're gonna have one team come out unscathed at Wild Weekend. Like I think every single team is very capable and most likely will take a loss.
Yeah, that could definitely happen. A bunch of 1-1 records.
Yeah.
Have we had that yet this season? No, because Arizona went 2-0 and San Diego has gone 2-0. So the host teams have gone 2-0. So Utah Wild 2-0, maybe.
Do it.
Do it, Utah Wild. Do it for Sasha. I mean, I think I'm right in saying that is the next time Utah plays is at home. So they've got time to prep.
In 2 weeks.
Yeah, correct. They've got a couple weeks to prep. Anyway, so I'm impressed by Alpenglow. I think they will continue to do good things. I think a lot of the same contributors that we have seen perform well over the past weeks, including like Jay McLaughlin and Abby Thorpe, will continue to be great for Alpenglow. And I think Wild, they're 1-1 right now with Colorado, and we have no other information of them against any other team. So I'm going to be very curious to see them starting week 7. Any other thoughts before maybe we pivot to something slightly out of order from what we were saying in prep, but talking about the two teams that Utah and Colorado will play in week 7, San Francisco and LA?
Yeah, you already kind of mentioned them, but Rory Veldman just absolutely unstoppable this game. Like just getting deep block after deep block and getting deep catch after deep catch and goals. Like incredible performance. Paige, and like you said as well, Paige Kircher had at least 5 goals, which is not normally what Paige does. Paige usually is the one throwing assists, but this time bunches and bunches of goals. It was a great game. It was a lot of fun to watch. If you want to watch it and haven't watched it, go on to the Western Ultimate League YouTube and watch it because it was good. But yeah, moving forward to LA at San Francisco, where you were at commentating.
I was.
Go for it.
It was a good time.
Lay it on us.
I mean, it was a good time. It was a fun game. Didn't obviously quite go in the favor that I wanted it to go. But it was close early. Both teams looking pretty clean, kind of similar to the New York Philly game in that it was pretty clean offense early on before SF got the first break in the game in the first quarter. Finally, Coach Manish Daryani, aka Slap, calling a timeout with the break opportunity and Falcons converting on it. Also, for SF, they didn't have Melina Wiebe or Midi Chang, who were some of their leading goal scorers and assist scorers, respectively. And so it was a more balanced contribution all around from San Francisco. By my count, Eliza Pugh had 3 assists and a block. Gina Schumacher had 3 goals and 2 assists. Gina continues to be one of the best players for the Falcons so far this season. I think that puts her at 13 assists total, if I'm correct, on the season, which is kind of incredible. But then second quarter, LA makes a bit of a comeback, scores a couple of breaks to take it into halftime. And then while the Falcons were able to close deficit within 1 throughout the rest of the game, they weren't ever to fully close the deficit. So that's the overview. And then there's Maggie O'Connor. So LA wins this game 15-13 in the end. Maggie O'Connor scores 4 goals. Impressive. Great. Fantastic. We're always cool. Player scores 4 or 5 goals. She also throws 7 assists. 7. I love Maggie. It's incredible. And I miss the days when we would play East Bay Women's League or East Bay Mixed League and just throw hucks to each other constantly back and forth. I miss those days, and I'm glad that Astra is getting to enjoy her incredible throwing prowess. 7 assists on their 15 goals, 4 goals, so 11 11 of 15 of Astra's 15 goals were scored or assisted by one Maggie O'Connor.
Check this out.
Oh my goodness.
check more like Maggie. Oh my goodness gracious, holy crap. Yeah. Going further deeper into this, she was on the field for 12 points of Astra's goals. So of the 12 goals that Astra had that she was on the field, she was involved in 11 of them.
That she could have possibly contributed directly to, because she was on the field all but one. And even then, I wouldn't be surprised if we went back and it was like a hockey assist.
Yeah.
It was like a secondary assist. I wouldn't be shocked.
But this is also, it breaks the single game record for combined goals and assists for one player.
I mean, it's 11.
It's 11.
11.
That's a lot.
Double digit contributions in a single Ultimate game. That is rare company to be in over the years.
That's
players have done it before, but it is an uncommon thing when that happens.
Yeah, it's like
it's certainly at this level. To be clear,
reminds me of
this
like
level.
Julia Schmaltz 10 goals in one game at college nationals. Pretty sure that happened.
I believe it. Or
the Jack Williams game in semis, or
Jack Williams, UNC Wilmington, or who am I thinking
John
of?
Stubbs.
Harvard. I was thinking of like Harvard. I was like, it's a John something.
It's like one of those games where you're just like is everywhere. Unfortunately, ended up in a loss. No, win. Sorry, win.
No,
I lied.
No.
Win. I was looking at the wrong thing. My bad.
Yeah.
And they ended up in a win.
Maggie has played in the Bay Area quite a bit before, but is no longer a Bay Area person, and so gets a bunch of the credit in LA's win. Also, Avalon Agawa, at least 4 blocks by my count, including a number of just incredible layout blocks, including one where she just totally read the offensive player's eyes in a 2-on-1 situation and just clean like layout catch block interception. It was like, oh my goodness. This was fun. And it was the second half. I know I'm talking a lot, but it was because I was there and commentating. And you should go back and listen to my commentary in the moment because it was kind of wild in these moments. There's a situation in the third quarter where LA's coaches had already called their 2 timeouts of the half and then tried to call a third. And it was confusing because in the booth, I had unfortunately not kept track of LA's timeout situation. So in the booth, we thought it was a stall, but it turns out that it was an improper use of timeouts by LA that then gave the disc to San Francisco late in the third quarter, which was a whole thing. And like the 2 coaches were like, the LA coach was trying to call it, and then Slap was like, no, you used both of yours. You can't call a third. There was a whole thing going on between them. And then at the end of the game, it is 14-13. Let me set the stage for you, Sascha. It's 14-13. There's like 45 seconds left in the game. Falcons need a quick turnover from LA. And they get it. It's like a pretty quick turnover from LA. And there's like 20 seconds left on the clock. So if you're San Francisco, you're like, we need to just complete a few passes. And they are sitting they're sitting on their timeouts. They still have them. It could go to overtime if they finish the possession out and move to 14-14. And I talked to Slap after the game, and she was like, right before a final block from Audrey Brown from LA that preserved the possession for them, and then they scored the eventual goal to give the 2-goal margin, I was thinking about calling the assist right before the player threw the turnover into the block from Audrey Brown. And poor Slap on the sideline afterwards was like, I should have just called it. Just like it. That's the thing, right? As a coach, you're like, I have the ability to do this, and then you don't do it, and it comes back to bite you. And it was just, I was hoping from the booth and as a Falcons fan for overtime, for more ultimate, but alas, for the Falcons. But it continues to make things interesting in the Southwest, and we'll talk about the final WO game of the weekend in a sec. It is looking crowded behind San Diego. It is looking like it's going to come down like it did last season to the final games of the season as to who ends up making it the championship weekend behind San Diego in the Southwest. So we'll see. Any other thoughts or questions for me, Sascha, from the LA SF game?
No, I think you covered everything. Good. I mean, great game. I was able to watch the very end of it. And it was pretty wild. I was hoping for overtime so I could watch more of it. Yeah, moving forward to San Diego. Well, I guess to Arizona. Going down to Arizona. San Diego went to Arizona.
They did.
And San Diego left Arizona with a win and a 12
I thought you were going to say it was that San Diego left Arizona in the dust. In the desert dust, because they did.
Because they did. The final score 24-12, a 12-point margin. They had a 10-point lead at half. So I guess like second, I wasn't able to watch this full game, but it seems like second half they just kind of, I don't know, kept things closer together.
Yeah, this was the game that was happening right before the Falcons game, so I didn't get a chance to really watch much of it. I caught very brief glimpses and then was trying to skim over some of it in prep the last couple of days. I'm not sure if it was San Diego kicking it into, dropping down a gear or if it was Arizona putting up more of a fight in the second half. But I mean, once you're up by 10, and I mean, they were up by 10 at halftime. They were up by 11 after 3 quarters, and San Diego, that is, and they only allowed 4 goals in the third quarter. So like it seems more to me that it was like maybe the game got messy, maybe San Diego kicks it down a gear, but like, yeah, it was kind of wild. I mean, and that 10-point halftime lead could have been 11 because San Diego executed an onside pull. Onside pull, I don't know if everyone's familiar with the term, but the way I use it is that basically you drop the disc at your feet and let the other team run in the full field to come and get it while you pre-stall them, and ideally either get an immediate turnover or force a quick turnover score opportunity. And that is what happened. Arizona was caught off guard and didn't get down there and quick enough in time, even though the Arizona coaches called a timeout right as basically the players picked up the disc. It was still ruled a turnover, and San Diego had the opportunity to go and score. They didn't end up scoring in the end, but like onside pull with seconds remaining, but also like we should talk about it. Does that make sense if you're pulling and there's only seconds left to do an onside pull? Because if the other team doesn't do it right, you get a free possession, and the WL and the PUL, for the PUL all but the fourth quarter, it's possession rules. If you can generate an immediate turnover off of an onside pull, you have a free possession potentially. I don't hate it, and again, it's like the DC situation we were talking about earlier. How do we feel about it when San Diego's already up by 10? Is that sporting? Is that, the right thing to do? Or is it like we're going to try and maximize opportunities to get points? Thoughts, Sascha?
I like the onside pull.
I think it's clever.
It is very clever. It's like it's one of those things where you're taking advantage of the rules, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, they're written as they are. You can pull as however you want, and there is a pre-stall. And also, like, I saw some folks in like the YouTube chat, because I was trying to find this play because I was really confused as to what everyone was talking about in the YouTube chat. And people are like, oh, like people can't run that far that fast. And it's like, but I'm pretty sure even in the WL, you probably get at least a 10-second, if not 7-second pre-stall before the actual stall count. So if you recognize that it's a onside pull situation, that gives you at minimum, I guess, 10 seconds to sprint 70 yards, 80 yards, which is okay. Maybe it's feeling harder than it is, but I would have to go back and look at what the pre-stall count is for the WL.
This actually reminded me of something that happened in the Surge and Gridlock game as well. So at the very end of the first half, there was a disc that went out of bounds on the pool, but the clock keeps running because
I guess it's PUL versus WL rules.
Yeah, this is the PUL rules, is that the clock will keep running except for it. Okay, on the PUL website, the rule states in the last 2 minutes of the fourth quarter only, the clock will stop after a goal and restart when a pull is caught, touched by an inbounds offensive player, or tapped into play from out of bounds area. Okay. So the clock doesn't stop in the first 3 quarters. So what happened was like someone pulled out of bounds and was getting close to the end, like to the end of the half,
maybe, or
no, it was the end of the half.
Okay.
And the person that went to go pick up the disc just took their sweet time. They took a really long time to go get the disc and kind of jog very slowly up to the middle of the field to tap in the disc, because like it was just wasting time.
Yeah.
And I thought that was super interesting. Sorry, we're going on.
But that's what I feel like you talked about this the other week of like, oh, if you're behind, you should like speed things up, right? And like put disc into play and like get possessions moving. And that's the opposite in that case, right? Of
if
a
you're
team
ahead,
taking their time. And I mean, it is interesting, right? The possession rules make it so that if you can guarantee or near guarantee yourself possession at the end of the quarter, that is the most advantageous thing to do.
Yeah.
And like, I have interacted with San Diego head coach Angela Wells in a few different scenarios before, and like, she's the type of coach that I could clearly imagine would think of what are the different scenarios we might run into at the end of quarters with possession rules, and is there a world in which we are pulling with like no time remaining and we do an onside pull? And the answer is yes, that is possible. And if it would work, it would give us an immediate advantage. And right, it's that, or you pull out of bounds, as we saw Arizona do in the Super Bloom Beach Bowl against LA and San Francisco, pulling out of bounds. Onside pull is a variant of that, except that you don't need to generate a block if the other team can't get down fast enough. Also, I am actively looking up the WL rulebook, by the way, to try and figure out the pre-stall count thing.
I don't know. It's interesting. Like the different rules and things are definitely interesting. Okay, here's a question that I just thought of.
Okay.
Do you think? Okay, example in the AUDL, there are end of quarter situations, and every end of quarter is a buzzer beater in the AUDL,
right?
And every team has an end of quarter line, which is literally like the biggest guys on the team and like one or two guys that can throw the disc the farthest.
Mm-hmm.
Do we think that any of these teams in the WL or PUL have a line that they would put out? Like, do they have an end of quarter line? Like in my mind, go ahead.
If you did, I think you would probably just try and put, if you're on offense, you just put out your go-to offensive line, because I think ideally with offensive lines, they don't turn the disc over anyway. If you're on defense, though, I think that's different, right? You probably you might put out your most like high variance defensive players, if that makes sense. The ones who are gonna like go, you tell that line, go hunt blocks safely, but go hunt blocks. And if you get beat over the top, as long as it's not with time remaining still, I guess it doesn't matter either way. Like, fine. I don't know. It is interesting because I don't think there's been that much time spent so far because it's so early in certainly the WL's existence for like this sort of game planning stuff to come up.
Yeah, like my thought is like if you're on offense, you just have the you don't even have to have your entire offensive line. You just have people like your most reliable people. Because like sometimes you put some of your reliable handlers on the D line so that the D line can generate breaks. Makes sense.
Yeah.
So like having a like kind of a hybrid crossover end of quarter line. I don't know. Be interesting to talk to some of the coaches and see what they think and what they have.
Yeah. I was looking at it for the WL rule set. It was stating that the stall count just had it. 7-second stall counted by the marking player pre-stall time limit shall remain consistent with USAU rules, which I think is 10 seconds of pre-stall.
Yeah. Inbounds is 10 seconds.
Yeah. So in inbounds, right? So let's say you need to pick up the disc to take a timeout with, before the seventh second. So let's say you have 15 seconds. I'd put pretty good money on WL players being able to sprint 80 yards in 15 seconds.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Because you just need to get there, grab the disc, and you can either throw it immediately or call time.
Right.
Right? Like, there could be a situation where it's like you and another person sprint down there, and one of you picks up the disc, and the other one gets the reset pass.
Right.
Or something like that, right? Like, and even in that situation, like Arizona was seemingly able to get off a throw, and had they been down there, a second or two earlier, that might have counted for a goal. Because there was like an unmarked player, basically, but they didn't quite get down there in time. So it was a whole thing. Anyway, that means that San Diego has now played 2/3 of their, 3/4 of their games. They're sitting at 5-1. They currently hold the head-to-head tiebreaker against San Francisco and LA and Arizona. There are upcoming games. We're going to talk about picks in just a sec. Arizona traveling to San Diego next week to play that matchup, and then San Diego plays LA in week 9 in the final action in the Southwest Conference. But I think it would take a lot at this point, especially with the goal differential, because I think right now the goal differential is in San Diego's favor over LA by 11 and over Arizona by 12. And in order to win those tiebreakers, Arizona and LA would have to more than reverse that tiebreaker head-to-head and win out. So anyway, I think San Diego Super Bloom are going to go to championship weekend, Sascha. How about you?
Yeah, I think they got it. I think they got it locked up. It's kind of smooth sailing from here. But the rest of the teams in that division, like we were saying, they're very close together, and anything can happen.
LA at 2-2, Arizona at 2-3, San Francisco at 2-3. I could not tell you how this is going to turn out. So it's going to be interesting. Should we go to our picks and might as well start in the WL, right?
Let's do it.
Picks for this upcoming week. We have 2 games in the Southwest Conference once again, and 1 game in the Northwest Conference once again. Northwest Conference have a lot of games in the back few weeks of the season, so don't worry, y'all. We will get there. Arizona gets the SoCal doubleheader at San Diego, and then at LA, while Oregon makes the return PNW trip up to Seattle. Sascha, where should we start?
Arizona at San Diego.
Great. I'm going to take San Diego.
I'm also taking San Diego.
Great.
There's nothing more to say about that.
All right. The next one, Oregon at Seattle. I'm taking Seattle.
At Seattle? Yeah.
At Seattle.
Yeah, it's definitely Seattle.
Look, I mean, Seattle and Oregon played a pretty good game in Oregon, but now it's in Seattle. So Seattle won the last one. Seattle's going to win this one at home.
They have so many people there, like there's no way.
All right, Arizona at LA. This one's actually, I think, the most interesting of the WO games next weekend.
Arizona at LA.
At LA. And notably, I will say, before you make your pick, one thing I really noticed that was the difference, not maybe the difference, but a difference for LA against San Francisco after LA lost at home 16-10 to San Francisco in week 1, Caitlin Weaver, who was not available week 1,
Caitlin
was
Weaver's
available
back.
for Astra and was great. Also, Camille Wilson did not play against San Francisco, nursing an injury, but may be back next week. So, things to consider for LA that I know of from seeing them literally this past weekend.
Okay. Wait, am I going?
Sorry. I can go. I'm going to pick LA.
Okay. You can pick LA. That's fine.
I'm going to pick LA. Knowing the things and seeing LA win against San Francisco on the road, I'll take LA at home. Especially if Caitlin Weaver's going to be there.
I was also going to pick LA.
Okay. Yeah, Maggie, I said all those things and wasn't sure if I was going to influence your pick or not.
Nope, not at all. Maggie, you got to go for 8 assists and 5 goals this time.
We'll see. All right, PUL?
We have DC at Milwaukee. I think we're both picking DC here.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't...
You would be correct.
Yeah, nothing much more to say about that. All right. And then we can go Austin at Raleigh. I am picking Raleigh.
I'm also picking Raleigh. Picking Raleigh. Against your championship weekend pick, Sasha. Oh my god.
Okay. Look.
Also, we need to do picks review after this because we skipped over that.
Also, listen, we picked our picks based on an algorithm. Based on our knowledge that there's an algorithm. So it's different. Anyways. Okay.
What's our last game?
Last game is probably the one that is the most the most close.
Once again, the third game we're picking is the closest.
And that is Nashville at Columbus.
Okay, I have a thought. I'm picking Columbus if and only if Kat McGuire is playing.
There we go.
If Kat McGuire is not playing, I'm not picking Columbus.
I'm just gonna put Columbus if Kat McGuire is playing. Why would Kat? But it's a home game. I don't see why Kat wouldn't play.
Again,
personally.
I don't see why not. So I'm gonna pick Columbus and just assume that's going to happen. But if Kat McGuire doesn't play, good luck, Pride.
All right, I'm gonna make it different, and I'm gonna pick Nashville.
Folks, we promise we won't make all the same picks. We're about to do picks review. We will show you we don't do all the same picks all the time, but like these games are setting up to be a little lopsided this week.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, picks review real quick. Unfortunately, Sasha, I continued to extend my lead on you. I went 3-2. You went 2-3. The difference maker. Well, take your pick. I picked Colorado to beat Utah in Colorado, and I was correct. However, I picked Arizona to win at home and was very wrong about that. And then, as mentioned, you picked New York, and I picked Philly, and that went in my favor. We both missed on San Francisco winning at home, but we both got DC winning at home. Any thoughts on the picks from last week?
I should have picked Philly because
you should have picked Philly.
Like I said earlier, I didn't realize that it was a home game for them at the time.
Then we at least would have tied on the week. So anyway, let us know your thoughts. Also, a tease, we might apparently, maybe per what I've heard and on Deep Look / seen on Discord, Sasha and I may be picking against Charlie and Keith for college regionals picks. So if that's a thing, keep an ear out on Deep Look because that'll be on the Deep Look feed.
Charlie and Keith are really going to try to make me not pick South Carolina for that second AC bid.
I was going to say, we need to chat beforehand because we need to decide if we're committing to South Carolina for the second AC bid or not. And I also have to make a decision about who I'm throwing am I throwing my favorite behind Cal or not for the third Southwest bid.
I'm just going to say right now, I'm committing to my team. That's
I will throw my support behind your team. Maybe we do just pick a couple of outsiders and then just see if we're right. Potential stakes might be that the losing team has to watch and recap the Detroit Mechanics games, which Notably, neither Sascha nor I currently have AUDL TV subscriptions. So Charlie and Keith, if you want that to be the bet and you listen to this, which I don't know if you do, because I know Charlie isn't much of a podcast guy. But if you do, y'all will need to get us AUDL TV subscriptions if that happens. Because I am not paying to watch the Detroit Mechanics on my own buck. That's not going to happen. Anyway, that's for weeks to come. Sascha, we have one more piece of business, and that is our
highlight of the week.
Sascha, what is our highlight of the week?
Highlight of the week this week is none other than Philly Surge's Emma Soilis. Emma had a sweet layout D that kind of really started like Philly's win, I guess.
Whoa! Major layout D there.
Wow, Emma Soilis with a big layout D.
I mean, they were up by 2 going. This was at the start of the second quarter. They were up by 2 going into the second quarter, and I think continued the energy into the second quarter. It was, as I was skimming back through, I was noticing that Philly started well in the start of the second and third quarters in particular, and the block from Soilis led to a immediate break. So great. Also, Raha Masvari continues to be incredible, and it was a gorgeous huck to Linda Morse for the goal. So, but set up by Emma Soilis, incredibly timed, impeccable form layout block. That is our highlight of the week. Anything else, Sascha, before we sign off?
Nope.
Thank you so much for joining us for Double Overtime presented by VC Ultimate. We will be back next week talking WO Week 6 action, PUO Week 3 action, and continue to go from there. And again, keep an ear out eventually for Deep Look things. We'll probably know more by next week. But thank you again so much for joining us. I need to get off this mic because my words are all coming together. I have been Jenna Weiner. He has been Sascha Vogel. Thank you so much for joining us. We will talk to you again next time. Bye.